India's twin aircraft carriers, INS Vikrant and INS Vikramaditya, will lead a mighty show of strength by the Indian Navy and its allies. They are the biggest ever war games to be held in Indian waters and will surely cause a worry in China. 20 foreign warships, including stealth submarines, frigates and corvettes, and maritime surveillance aircraft, Milan 2024 will have it all. This multinational armada of India and its allies is a powerful message to expansionist China's ambitions, but China is arguably building the largest navy in the world. It has more assets than even the United States of America. So can Milan 2024 deter any Chinese plans in the Indian Ocean? And which are the countries participating in these massive military exercises? So the two largest navies in the Indo-Pacific are surely inching towards a confrontation. Chinese spy ships in Sri Lanka and Maldives have caused a worry in New Delhi, which has been deploying its own stealth submarines, warships, to track the Chinese activity. Now, this year's Milan military drills are a great opportunity for New Delhi to send a loud message to Beijing that India is not standing alone. Apart from India's quad allies of the United States, Australia and Japan, strategic allies like France will send its warships. Even Bangladesh and South Korea will participate, as will Southeast Asian nations including Vietnam, Malaysia and Indonesia, all of whom have opposed Beijing's expansionist ambitions in the South China Sea. Even naval assets of Russia and Iran will join India's Milan Navy drills. Now it's a testament to India's global leadership that it can bring warships from the US and France, Russia and Iran all together in the same place. So how will Xi Jinping's China respond? Let's take a closer look. Milan is one of India's most successful defense exercises carried out with international participation. The 12th edition of the Multilateral Naval Exercise 2024 is taking place in Visakhapatnam, the city of destiny, under the guidance of Indian Navy's Eastern Naval Command from the 19th to the 27th of February. Now it is expected to witness the largest participation ever, with over 50 countries invited to attend this event. Now when we talk of naval drills, they usually involve 2 to 5 ships mostly, but India's Milan 2024 will welcome nearly 20 warships from partner nations. The theme of this year is camaraderie, cohesion and collaboration, even as we navigate waters vastly separated by distance. It is to be concluded in 2 separate phases named the harbour phase and the sea phase, where the first phase starts from the 19th to 23rd and will provide a platform for discussions related to maritime subjects of common interest and shared solutions. Now, it also has tabletop exercises, professional interactions with young officers and conferences, but we are more interested in the second phase or the sea phase, where all the action will take place. The sea phase is planned from the 24th to 27th of February. Both aircraft carriers of the Indian Navy will lead this part. Now, India's deployment of both of its carrier groups is surely a show of strength, not just for Xi Jinping in China, who will surely be watching through spy pigeons or more likely spy satellites, but it is also a show of strength for India's allies and partners who will be taking part, a demonstration, if you will, of India's maritime power. Along with the carriers, India will also have other warships, maritime aircraft like the P-8 type Poseidon, and submarines all pressed into action. Now, this multinational armada will then indulge in the following. 1. Large force maneuvers, a test of communication and tactics. 2. Advanced air defense operations with MiG-29 fighter jets of the carriers might take part. 3. Anti-submarine warfare, which may include either hunting an enemy submarines or preventing an attack on a carrier group. 4. Anti-surface warfare operations, which Navy groups attack spaces or communication networks on land. And 5. War at sea, which, as the name suggests, may be a face-off between 2 or more naval groups. So clearly, Milan 2024 will send shockwaves around the world, but the question is why? Why are these military war games in the Indian Ocean so important, not just for India, but for each of the participating nations? Is the Indian Ocean one of the world's most important waterways? And why controlling just a handful of choke points in the Indian Ocean will give any country control over world trade? No prizes for guessing then why Chinese warships increase their presence in this region and why India will do nearly anything to maintain its own dominance. The periodicity of naval exercises, including live-fire drills on the high seas, is increasing globally, which is meant as a signal for power projection. Now, this was even seen during the Chinese naval maneuvers around Taiwan, with live fire from all directions. Such exercises keep the defenders on the tenterhooks, fearing that exercises might be a prelude to an invasion, as we saw in Europe. They also indicate a country's readiness or unwillingness to participate in actual multilateral operations such as Milan 2024. Or the Malabar naval exercises of Quad navies. With the growing Chinese interest, the Indian Ocean is also turning into a conflict zone. There are 38 littoral countries around the Indian Ocean, which has an extent of 75 million square kilometers or 19.5% of the world's ocean area. It contains some of the world's poorest nations, home to almost 2.6 billion people, or 39% of the world's population. There are only 7 choke points that connect it to other oceans by sea. 2 of these lead to the Atlantic Ocean, the remaining 3 to the Pacific Ocean, and are considered the keys to world trade. This is especially true for the Malacca Strait, through which nearly 80% of Chinese maritime trade passes. The South China Sea, Pacific and the Indian Ocean are connected by this 805-kilometer-long Strait of Malacca. Between energy suppliers in the Middle East and Africa, markets of Europe, manufacturing in India, and end users in China, Japan, Taiwan and South Korea, this narrow waterway is the fastest maritime route. The strait is firmly under India's watchful eyes thanks to the nearby strategically located Andaman and Nicobar Islands. And New Delhi has vowed to maintain a free and open Indo-Pacific. Chinese bullying of smaller nations on the other side of Malacca Strait in the South China Sea have also rung alarm bells in Indian military circles. Through Milan 2024, in the vicinity of Malacca Strait, Indian Navy is sending another message that it remains ever ready to defend its interests and those of its democratic allies. But is India ready? Does India have the maritime strength to face both the Chinese Navy and the Pakistani Navy? Let's take a look. Let's be clear, we do not want a conflict, but every country has to realize geopolitical realities and be prepared for any eventuality. Especially after the 2020 Galwan Valley clashes in which Indian and Chinese soldiers lost their lives, the threat of another confrontation spiraling out of control is very real. While on the other hand, India and Pakistan have fought numerous wars, and another one can never be ruled out. So let's take a look and compare naval powers of India, Pakistan and China. On your screens now is a statistic comparing naval assets of India, Pakistan, China. India has 294 warships and other assets. Pakistan has 114. China is way ahead at 730. If we compare aircraft carriers, India has 2, China has 2, Pakistan does not. Helicopter carriers, India, Pakistan don't have any, China has 3. Destroyers, frigates and corvettes are a different type of warships and India has a clear advantage over Pakistan here. But once again, China's numbers are way ahead. While India's naval assets are about 2.5 times that of Pakistan, China has naval assets which are more than double that of India. Especially if you look at submarines, India has 18, which is respectable by global standards. Pakistan has 8, China has 61, which does pose a challenge across the world. Patrol vessels, India and China have almost similar, 137 to 150. Pakistan is again training at 69. Now, the geopolitical reality is that we are talking about the Indian Ocean region. Now here, India and Pakistan are the main players. So if there is a confrontation, it is likely that India and Pakistan naval assets will come up against each other. India holds the edge. Now if we compare India and China, now China is not a home player of the Indian Ocean region. It will have to bring its assets from the South China Sea, cross the Malacca Strait and then enter the Indian Ocean region. So that itself is a challenge, as India holds the key to the Malacca Strait and China will find it difficult to push its assets into this region. And secondly, China will not commit all of its naval assets into any confrontation with India, because a larger headache for China is really Taiwan and the US military, which is really standing on its doorstep. So in case of any naval confrontation, China will only commit a fraction of its naval assets against India, even if it does at all. India and China have not fought any major wars since 1962. And the threat of another major naval battle between these two is unlikely at this stage. So what are Indian Navy's plans to close the gap on China? The Indian Navy has given the go-ahead for the construction of a third aircraft carrier, INS Vishal. It will be based on the same design as the indigenous INS Vikrant, but may have more advanced sensors and weapon systems. Currently, India has 67 warships under construction, out of which 65 are being constructed in Indian shipyards. However, a big boost to the Indian Navy would be the deal for Rafale M fighter jets for its aircraft carrier INS Vikrant. The Rafale M is considered the most sophisticated naval combatant. 36 Rafale C, or the Indian Air Force version of the aircraft, is currently in service in India, and Dassault Aviation, the aircraft source, claims that All of its variants have a great deal of airframe and equipment commonality, which is one of the primary reasons for the Rafale being selected over the Boeing FA-18 Super Hornet. The advanced 4.5 generation Rafale fighter jets on INS Vikrant will multiply the Indian Navy's force projection and allow it to strike at distances where ground-based jets simply cannot. With no other regional rival with similar capabilities, this enables the Indian Navy to dominate the Indian Ocean, Arabian Sea or the Bay of Bengal. 22 single-seat Rafale Marine aircraft will come from France with 4 twin-seat trainers, which are part of the procurement plans. The Milan Navy exercises is another display of India's central role in global geopolitics. Not only is it a show of India's military might, but just like G20, India has once again managed to get the US and Russian blocs together in a common exercise. Have your say. Does today's divided world need India's leadership? Leave a comment below, and if you like this news report, then subscribe to our channel or hit the like button so that it can reach more viewers.